The night was cold, but the tension in the air was even colder. Jasmine Carter, a well-dressed woman in her early 40s, had just stepped out of her luxury car when flashing red and blue lights surrounded her. Within seconds, officers rushed in, barking orders. "Hands where we can see them," one of them shouted. Jasmine barely had time to react before rough hands grabbed her. Confusion and fear flickered across her face as they pushed her against the vehicle, patting her down aggressively. Bystanders gasped, some recording on their phones, while she tried to remain calm. They didn't know. They had no idea who she was. The same woman they were treating like a suspect was the silent force funding their department. But would they realize their mistake before it was too late? Or would this night change everything for them and for her? Jasmine had been quietly supporting the local police department for years. As a billionaire philanthropist, she believed in using her wealth to make a difference in her community, especially in underfunded areas. But her donations had always been anonymous. No one knew that the sleek black SUV she drove was hers, or that the woman in front of them was the one signing the checks that kept their department running. As the officers continued to search her, her mind raced. What had triggered this stop? Jasmine had no criminal record, no reason to be treated like this. She watched their faces, trying to remain composed, but the harsh treatment made it harder. Her thoughts kept returning to the larger question: was this personal? Had someone tipped them off? Was she just another target in a broken system, or had something more sinister been set in motion? The officers hadn't realized yet, but the tables were about to turn. As the officers continued their invasive search, Jasmine felt a rising frustration, but she was careful not to show it. She knew how quickly a situation like this could escalate if she didn't stay composed. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a reminder of her own power, her own reach. She didn't have to take this, but she wasn't sure if this was the right moment to show them who she truly was. The fear of retaliation, of opening a door to an even bigger mess, weighed heavily on her. Meanwhile, Officer Ryan, one of the officers handling her, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He'd been in the force long enough to recognize when someone was more than they seemed. He'd heard whispers about a mystery donor to the department, but he never expected it to be the woman he was now treating with such aggression. Was she involved in something illegal, or was she just in the wrong place at the wrong time? In the distance, a few bystanders were still recording, whispering amongst themselves. Some looked on with concern, while others seemed too eager to capture every moment. Jasmine's face was becoming a spectacle, but she could feel the eyes of the city watching her now, waiting for something to happen. She started to wonder, had her help to the police actually made her a target? Was this about her wealth, her influence, or something deeper, something more personal? As they continued to question her, her mind raced. If she revealed her identity now, what would it mean for her legacy? Would she be the hero, or would she be seen as just another part of a corrupt system? Jasmine's pulse quickened as the officer, Ryan, leaned in closer, his hands still gripping her arms too tightly. She could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the way he glanced at his colleagues as if looking for confirmation. Her instincts told her this wasn't just another random stop. They were treating her like a criminal, but she wasn't sure why. Was it because of her wealth, her background, or was something else at play here? In the distance, she could hear the chatter of the bystanders growing louder. Some had started to connect the dots, whispering about the mysterious billionaire who had donated millions to the police. The rumors spread like wildfire, and soon it was clear that they were all looking at Jasmine through a different lens. Was she the savior of the department, or something far darker? Ryan's partner, Officer Thompson, stepped forward, his expression hardening as he scanned Jasmine. "You sure about this?" he asked quietly, as though unsure of his own role in the situation. Ryan hesitated, his brow furrowing. "I don't know. Something's not right." He stepped back, as if wrestling with a decision. Just as the tension reached its peak, Jasmine's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her assistant, but she couldn't focus on it. The weight of the situation was too much. Was this just another bad decision by an officer trying to make a name for himself, or was there something bigger going on? Something that threatened to expose her for more than just the philanthropist everyone thought she was. Just as the tension reached its peak, Jasmine's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from her assistant, but she couldn't focus on it. The weight of the situation was too much. Was this just another bad decision by an officer trying to make a name for himself, or was there something bigger going on? Something that threatened to expose her for more than just the philanthropist everyone thought she was. The air was thick with anticipation. The officers were starting to notice the growing crowd, the murmurs turning into whispers that bordered on suspicion. Ryan looked down at the phone in her hand, still waiting for an answer. He was ready to take it to the next level, but something inside him told him he hadn't yet uncovered all the layers of this strange encounter. Jasmine was standing at a crossroads, each second bringing her closer to a decision that could shatter everything she'd worked for. The tension in the air was thick, but just as Ryan stepped closer, his phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling his attention away for a moment. It was an urgent message. His eyes darted to the screen, then back to Jasmine. His expression shifted. Something was wrong. The message wasn't from his partner or anyone in the department. It was from an unknown number. The text read, *stop. She's not who you think she is. *. Ryan froze for a moment, heart racing. His mind went back to all the strange details about Jasmine. Her presence at so many fundraisers, the way she seemed to move in circles that most people could only dream of. He had brushed off the whispers before, but now they felt too close to the truth. "Who's the message from?" Thompson asked, his voice sharp as he noticed the change in Ryan's demeanor. Ryan didn't respond immediately, too consumed by the growing sense that they had just stepped into something much larger than they realized. He looked over at Jasmine, her eyes still filled with calm, but now mixed with a quiet, knowing desperation. Was she playing them? Or was this an even deeper game that no one could understand? Before he could make sense of it, another officer arrived, breathing heavily. "There's someone outside," he said. "A van. It's parked across the street. They've been recording the whole thing. Looks like they've got a live feed." The air felt even colder now. Jasmine's eyes flicked toward the crowd, trying to gauge if anyone had caught the message's meaning. She had known the risks of being in the spotlight, but this was beyond anything she'd anticipated. The truth about her identity was about to slip, whether she wanted it to or not. Ryan's grip tightened on her arm. "What's going on?" he demanded. Jasmine met his eyes for the first time with full, unfiltered intensity. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she said, her voice low but steady. The words felt heavy in the air, charged with the weight of everything she hadn't said. And then, as if to punctuate the warning, a new voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. "Are you arresting her? Because if you are, you better know who you're messing with." The voice belonged to a woman in the crowd, but her face was familiar. Jasmine's breath caught. It was one of the department's key investors, someone who had been in her inner circle for years, someone she'd never expected to show up, not like this. The stakes had just shifted, and the crowd was starting to take sides. The woman from the crowd stepped forward, pushing her way through the murmuring onlookers. Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. She knew this woman, knew her well. Evelyn Bennett, a high-profile investor in her many philanthropic ventures. Evelyn had always been a quiet presence, always staying in the shadows, but today she was standing between Jasmine and the officers. "What's going on here?" Evelyn demanded, her voice cutting through the tension. She turned to Ryan, her eyes burning with an intensity that made him hesitate. "Do you realize who you're talking to? Or maybe who you're attacking?"